Reddit by Reddit recap. What is something you can't believe you had to explain to an adult? That rice comes from a plant and is not flour and water rolled into little rice shapes. Wondering how someone who was 26 years old had lived that long without working this out before. They may have just thought that rice was the English name for orzo aka rizzoni. After all, everybody knows that pasta came from China by way of Italy, thanks to Marco Polo, right? Sure, it's stupid, but not altogether illogical. Edit. It's not like polished white rice actually looks like grain. Whole brown rice looks like grain. Sure, but white rice? Not so much. I was once asked by a 26-ish-year-old colleague what corn seeds look like. I laughed. Then I realized he was serious. And you need to actually wash your ass crack. And no, the water just running off from washing your hair/back isn't sufficient to clean your ass. I have had to explain this to multiple grown-ass dudes, and it always baffles me. How can someone have gone 20 or 30 years without ever actually doing this? How can you not notice that you still smell like literal shit after showering? What? How can someone have gone 20 or 30 years without ever actually doing this? Another question is, what is the scientific value of a microenvironment that has gone 20-30 years untouched by man? Maybe it should stay untouched. I ain't studying that. They found 1,400 plus new species of bacteria living in people's belly buttons. One science writer, for instance, apparently harbored a bacterium that had previously been found only in soil from Japan, where he has never been. Another, more fragrant individual, who hadn't washed in several years, hosted two species of so-called extremophile bacteria that typically thrive in ice caps and thermal vents. And a hysterectomy is not the taking of the kitten. 50-year-old man thought it left a woman in kind of a Barbie-like state. Taking of the kitten shall be the title of my memoir on losing my virginity. A uterus is different from a vagina. I still have a vagina. In grade 9 health class we had to list different types of contraceptive on our exam. I put hysterectomy and menopause as two of my answers and was marked wrong. I argued with the teacher that I was right until she conceded a half point on each. My whole argument was, if before intercourse you have a hysterectomy or go through menopause, what is the chance that a child can be conceived? Why is this different to having a vasectomy? As an adult I realize why I was wrong, but also I realize why I was right. And yes, a man can be a cook. By the way, she has been to restaurants before and has seen my brother cook and so on, but for some reason she thinks only women can be professionally cooks because she thinks guys who cook probably are gay. Her thinking is so headache-inducing and backwards that I am surprised she hasn't poisoned herself by accident with bleach. Sadly, she's my sister-in-law. Funny, restaurant kitchens are very male-dominated. Imagine her walking up to Gordon Ramsay and calling him gay. I was going to say that Gordon Ramsay, his wife and their 5 children disagree. That women have more than one orifice in their genital region. He was a married adult man, comma. I don't have a clicker, thanks. The poor wife. Right, comma. That dinosaurs were real and not a conspiracy against the church. What the hell happened here? My friend believes the world is literally 6,000 years old and that we actually lived with the dinosaurs. He believes the Bible in a literal way, and when they traced back the list of names' descendants it goes back 6,000 years. Otherwise a smart guy, but he refuses to believe anything else. And then he also shows me these conspiracy videos on how carbon dating is wrong and only goes back X amount of years. Which just goes to prove the other point with the Bible. Not even worth it to argue with him because at this point his mind is set and he will never change. My parents are like that, but I'm not so sure, but I'm only 14 so I just go along with it so he doesn't hound me trying to prove it. Kidney beans are not the kidneys of some small animal. Oh boy. What's the story behind your username? I just really like potatoes, I guess. Really, it is just a random name I pulled out of my ass the day I created my profile. Shrugs. I wish I had a cooler story for ya. Well, it looks like she is about 30 days pregnant. Congrats. How can she be pregnant? She is only around her brother. Well, actually they don't follow the same moral code as you or I. Veterinarian. conversation I overheard from a couple close relatives. I think my new kitten is actually a female. Why do you say that? Look, it has nipples. Male cats have nipples. 2. You wanna know how you can tell he's a male? How? He has a penis. Oh dude, my ex got really upset when he found nipples on one of our kittens. He thought it was an injury or something else that requires veterinary attention. His mind was completely blown when I explained that male cats have nipples too. LOL. What would he have said if you told him that many male mammals, if not most, have nipples? I think there's maybe a handful of species that don't. Credit card interest works. One of my 40+ YO co-workers once said my husband always tells me to pay the entire bill off, but I don't see the point and I don't like doing it. So I don't. What about the interest, I asked. She said, what's that? I was floored. What an idiot. I pity the husband. So did I. Poor guy's in for a shock someday. How long has this been going on? Cause that could be a massive amount right now. Just because Santa isn't real despite showing up in Christmas movies doesn't mean NASA footage of the Earth being round is also illegitimate. 72-year mother panicked when she saw a helicopter hovering in place because she thought it would fall out of the sky if it wasn't moving forwards. Helicopters, like sharks, need to stay in constant motion in order to breathe. If it hadn't stopped hovering, it would have suffocated. She's not completely wrong. Under certain circumstances they can lose lift if they hover too long. But most pilots are trained to avoid that, I think. Hovering in place is actually the most challenging skill for most helicopter pilots to learn. It's pretty complicated, much more so than just flying around. Tax brackets. So many folks brag about turning down raises because they think they'd be drastically lowering their take-home pay. I just smile and nod when my co-workers tell me how they make sure to not work too much overtime because they'll actually make less money. Then I work all the overtime I want. I know they think I'm an idiot, but I know they're the idiots, so it works out. Had a co-worker tell me he saved $1,600 a month in daycare costs by his wife being a stay-at-home mom. Like she had a degree and would easily be making $60K plus. Like, I guess it's alright if you want to lose more income to save $1,600 a month. TBH. He's proud of the wrong thing. He should be proud that together they can afford to have a stay-sane-home parent to give their kids better care and more attention than a standard daycare. If she could make that much, I'd assume she's competent enough to give good education and upbringing to kids daycare age. So assuming she's competent and at least somewhat knowledgeable about attending to their kids, it is actually a thing to be proud of, but saving money isn't that thing with that kind of opportunity cost. Antiviral and antibacterial are not the same thing. I've had to sit down with people and explain this before. In my college biology class, no less. Freaking mental. You need helium if you want party balloons to float. You cannot just blow it up with air from your lungs because it will just fall to the ground. Had to explain this to my wife when preparing for my daughter's first birthday party. That's kinda cute. You'd hope at least that, because that's definitely not smart. You could use hydrogen. Just keep it away from the candles. Had to explain to a girl that Alaska wasn't an island. She also didn't understand that Russia and Alaska are relatively close and not across the world, because the earth is round, y'all. I had to explain the Alaska thing to someone in her late 20s when we passed a car with an Alaska plate in our state. I can only guess the only US maps she had ever seen were the ones that show Alaska teleported down next to Hawaii. They're not nearly on the same latitude. Work for Amazon. A coworker was scolding me because I put the stuffing paper in the bottom of the box instead of on top because according to her this makes the package weigh more and won't pass the weight check. I explained to her that I didn't put more stuffing paper than usual so it wouldn't affect the weight, but she insisted that the paper being on the bottom of the box makes it heavier. I had to explain to her that that's not how gravity works. She didn't believe me, so I just walked with less hope for humanity than I arrived to work with. Technically, that's exactly how gravity works. The pulling force is inversely proportional to the square distance between two centers of masses. So putting the paper in the bottom brings the box's center of mass closer to the center of the earth. I'd really like to see the math on this. Like, how many octagram that would be. Is that why Amazon uses such oversized boxes? S. That Canada is a country and not a state in America. And that we don't speak Canadian. It is, however, a perfectly fitted hat for America. Can't drive to Hawaii. Not with that attitude. Sherps can drive across water, so yes you can. How to calculate 50% off. I wish I were joking. Really? That's really sad. Yep. Dude walked up to me during a store closing sale with a product that was like $99.99 with a 50% off sticker on it and asked me how much it was after the discount. Is this the US? Cause I always wondered. Since you don't include the tax on the price of an item, is it 50% off before tax or after? Is it consistent across stores? If you leave every light on, TV, AC cranked low, every appliance on, etc., even in rooms you're not in, your power bill will be a little on the pricey side. You do not need to leave everything on all the time, especially when you're not there, and until you understand that, I don't want to hear you bitch about your expensive light bill. I can only assume these people didn't grow up with a parent who would yell at them anytime they left the lights on. Isn't that a fairly universal experience? On a related note, I had a roommate who could not be dissuaded from leaving her window open at night in the winter. She insisted she needed the fresh air to sleep, but we lived in a place that would regularly get to -10 in the winter, and the thermostat was right by her room. Splitting utility bills with her was fun. Compared to HVAC, water heaters, computers, etc., lighting costs are almost negligible, especially with fluorescent and LED lights. I have electric heat. In the winter, it's literally zero cost to leave the TV on all the time. You need fuel for a generator and you can't just plug the generator into the wall. Whoa. Yeah you can. When your power is out, you plug in the generator and plug everything into it and it automatically makes the world have infinite energy. Idiot. That elbow grease was not something sold at a hardware store. I kid you not. No, but headlight fluid is. Had to explain to a fully grown adult that Polish is a language. Was assisting with an assessment for evaluating people to be TSA agents and we could clarify a question but we were not allowed to give the answer. A guy calls me over and he says he does not understand the question. The page of questions on the assessment were if you spoke different languages including Chinese, Japanese, etc. The question that he called me over for was if he spoke Polish. I asked him if he understood the question. He responded that he did, but he did not know that Polish, as in shoe polish, was a language. I explained to him that they were referring to the Polish language. He did not know how to speak Polish, so the answer to the question was no. He then raised his hand again, so I ran over to figure out what else he did not understand. The question was if he was a Native American. I asked him if you understood what Native American meant and he responded by asking if they meant like a veteran. TSA's Employee of the Month. I have a friend who thought Polish people speak Poland, not Polish. It was a little embarrassing because it made my Polish friend think that Americans are stupid. Best comment of the day. I had a 10-week-old baby and was tired as most moms are when looking after a young baby. My mom's 36-year-old friend knocked on her door and I answered. Mom was out, but her friend M was crying and gasping, and I was a little freaked, so I let her in. She was about 7 months pregnant at the time and already had a 12-year-old daughter. Being English, lol, I made her a cup of tea and tried to find out what was wrong. The only word I managed to understand through the tears was tadpoles. She had me stumped. Finally it clicks. Now M was born and raised in Southern Ireland. She went to Catholic school and was taught by nuns. Her daughter was born here in England and had just started comprehensive school. She brought home biology homework and M tried to help. It was human reproduction, and she had to draw a diagram of the egg and sperm. Tadpoles? Well, this freaked him out. There was no way her husband was putting tadpoles inside her, was there? So there's me teaching a grown pregnant woman with a child already about sex addition. This was the 1987, so no access to YouTube for help. That was a long day. It would have been funny if she wasn't so upset. When my mom got home she was still shaken and asked if I was telling the truth. Mom confirmed and she finally calmed down. M was a good mom. When she realized how little she knew, and that she couldn't help her daughter with her homework, she went to the library and studied whenever she could. She found it so interesting she ended up studying so well that she trained as a teaching assistant then as a teacher. Emma's no fool, she was just not given that information, but she really made up for it